All right, this is video number 2 on posture, for which we have our shoulder posture and our hip posture. I'll talk about shoulder posture first. And it's pretty simple. I mean, you've all been told at some point how to not sit at your desk as you type away. So certainly we want to elongate the spine. So depending on who I'm working with, I can give them the Marvel comic example, where you want your shoulders down and back, with your chest slightly out like you're posing for the movie poster. Most of you have heard that before, but I think some people kind of overcompensate and they put their chest too far out, and now you can see that, maybe you can see that arch in my lower back, which is what we don't want, because that can also cause the hip posture to then get into that, what they call anterior pelvic tilt. You're spilling water out of the front of the bucket. Okay, so I'll tie some of this together. So I sometimes joke and say that we don't want your mile 18 race photo of the marathon to resemble like the de-evolution of man as you keep going farther and farther down the race. Mile 1, pretty strong. Hey, I'm upright, smiling at the camera. And then mile 18 doesn't look anything like your mile 1 photo. So I know a lot of times when we think about posture, we think about the back or the spine, and that's not wrong. But one particular part of posture is when we get top heavy, and they've done studies on this, years ago. I mean, when all of us get tired, any runner, any slice of the demographic, when all humans get tired running, there's two things that happen to all of us. One, our stride length gets significantly shorter, and two, we tend to get a little bit top heavy. Our butt goes back a little bit, we might start to arch our spine a little bit, our shoulders go down. This is not a total body lean, this is getting top heavy. And you could say, back, spine needs to be stronger, or maybe abs have to be stronger. But really, it's probably starting from traditionally bigger, stronger muscles that are now fatigued or weren't trained well enough. And what I mean, I'll tilt this down a little bit, as you talk about the shoulder and hips kind of at the same time here, is my shoulders might be down, but it's because when my foot has hit the ground, and my quads, hips, and glute are fatigued, my hips have kind of sagged back a little bit. So when I'm in this position, and it's not really a spine thing, it's a core thing in here. And I tip my hat to Danny Dreyer of the Chi Running project, community, book, video, series. He's done it all. So he explains this very well in his videos, that when your core isn't strong enough, or when you're spilling water out of the front of the bucket and you haven't crunched your belly button up toward your chin, and your hips have sagged back and your butt is back here, that you're more likely to have extra side, I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. You're more likely to have side-to-side movement in your hips. Many of you have done a run form analysis at a running store or a PT clinic, and they put you up on the treadmill and they watch you from a rear view. They watch when your left foot hit the ground, did your right foot drop? When your right foot hit the ground, did your left foot drop? So usually what's happening with that, it's not just a side-to-side movement, it's also this plane has broken as well. So as you strengthen your hips, quads, glutes, and certainly everything else, when your foot hits the ground over longer distances, you're going to remain more stable, better support. Your hips won't collapse back as much. It's when the hips get out of position going back that you have more side-to-side movement, which just puts even more work, in a bad way, on your hips and your spine. So when you kind of lock this into place through thinking about it, but also through strength training and having this be your new default setting, now my hips don't move side to side as much as when my butt goes back. Then I can shimmy dance all day, and I'm much more stable here. So I applaud Danny Dreyer and Chi Running for really getting that notion going. All right, so what we're talking about now is hip posture, for which a common expression that I do like and I use a lot, and you do probably as well, and that is, from a side view, we don't want to spill water out of the front of the bucket. So hopefully you can see this nice contrast on my shorts between the white and the blue, that right now my waistline is angling down to the ground in front of me. That's anterior pelvic tilt. I've got this arch in my low back, and my butt and hips are back here. So if I crunch my belly button toward my chin, it levels out my waistline. This is exactly what you should be focusing on during all of your planks. Don't tell me you can sit there like this and hold a plank for 5 minutes. It's kind of a waste of time. You're probably cheating in some way. But what you want to do is do single leg planks. Spread your forearms, get your abs engaged, crunch your belly button toward the chin, get your butt from sticking up out of the air, get your butt down and flatter, and then do single leg toe taps. There's lots of variety therein. But what I'm getting at is this strength for your core to be able to actually hold your waistline in this level position as the default setting without having to think about it and think about it and think about it. It's helpful to think about it, but you don't want to have to rely on that. Strength training will make it your new default setting. So what we do is, we picture the skeleton in the back of the science classroom. You look at the hip bones, that pelvic girdle. You take a pencil and kind of fill in the lines a little bit. Your hip bones form a nice bucket. So the expression is, from a side view, you don't want your butt and hips going back with that arch in the spine, and you don't want to spill water out of the front of the bucket. Keep the bucket level. That will also take a lot of work off your lower back. So for some of you who are marathoners who just do a lot of distance running, for which an hour to an hour and a half could be a really long distance for you, and you're having low back problems, you might have, I'm not diagnosing you through video, but just consider how much your hips move around side to side. I gave the tennis racket example in the arm swing video that, again, sometimes you can think about it and make the correction, other times not. You have to address the underlying issues. It's not always back strength or spine alignment. You've got your hips, glutes, and quads that are responsible for kind of absorbing the impact along with your foot. And if those are strong, then you'll be sturdy. But if these are weak, well then the hips go back, and then the hips start going side to side, and then maybe you start rounding at the end. So correct it through strength training, make it the new default setting. Last point here is talking about leaning, for which I actually don't talk about leaning with my runners. I think only once in my 10 plus years that I ever try to give someone the command to lean while running. It doesn't meet with a lot of success, and here's the reason, and I'm not saying this from a drill sergeant mentality. Nothing against drill sergeants out there, but I'm using that stereotypical go hard, go fast mentality that you think a drill sergeant might give you. What I'm saying is that it's your lack of speed, perhaps, that's causing you to you're always going to be in that upright position. In other words, I believe, as another Danny wrote, Danny Abshire, in his book Natural Running, that I'll reference again later a couple times, that our total body lean just kind of happens naturally, and it's often just very subtle anyway. This total body lean isn't greatly pronounced. It's subtle. And as you start running faster and faster, sub 10 minute mile, sub 9 minute mile, sub 8 minute mile, sub 7 minute mile, and possibly with a good midfoot strike, which I'll get to at the very end of this video series, you're more likely to just have a total body lean. Whereas for some of you who are running 10 minute miles or slower, before I even meet up with you, all 10 minute milers or 12 minute milers look the same. Right? It's a fast walk. You're too upright in a walking position. It's damn near impossible for you to actually sense or feel a total body lean. So, patience over months, years, or whatever it's got to be, strength training, speed work here and there. Once you become faster, 9, 8, 7, there's really no command to have to lean while you run. Some of you maybe have had good success leaning while you're running, and I certainly put the lean drill, in my book for you to do barefoot and learn what it's like. But if you're not running fast enough, you're always going to be upright. So the reason I don't give the instruction to lean is that I find that oftentimes you're going to end up just sticking your butt out or putting your shoulders forward so that your butt goes back. And the joke is, for all you Bill Murray fans out there, from the movie What About Bob, when he's strapped to the front of the boat and he screams, "I am sailing, I am sailing." Well, he wasn't sailing. And when you run with your butt sticking out, your shoulders down, thinking you're leaning, you're not actually leaning, you're running top heavy. Okay? So those are my thoughts on the lean. There's probably other more important aspects of your running form that you could be working on. Save leaning for last.